Hi guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This is the video about Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, and I'm very into making this video right now. It is Scorpio season, so I am feeling the Scorpio vibe. You know, I actually have the asteroid Lilith in Scorpio, and she is exactly conjunct my ascendant, right, hanging out there with my Pluto. So I like this energy, right? I really like this energy, but you know, Black Moon Lilith, asteroid Lilith, they're different. I tend to see the asteroid Lilith as being the version of Lilith who exists before she was really deeply wounded and traumatized, and that's how we end up with the Black Moon Lilith, right? The Lilith who was going through her healing process, right? The Lilith who was going through her healing process. So Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, what are you healing? What is your process? What is your trauma? Like, what is the wound here, right? What is the wound here? And guys, this is Scorpio, this is Lilith. This is about sex, sexuality, your sexual identity, sexual trauma, sexual abuse for some people, all of that kind of stuff. Of course, you know, Scorpio isn't only about sex, it's also about power dynamics. It can even be concerned about money and just deep emotional intimacy and intellectual depth, perceiving to the heart of things. Scorpio energy is, of course, very complex and multifaceted. It is the transformational death process. There's a lot going on here. But there are some Scorpio placements that really highlight the fact that much of this conversation is going to be about sex and sexuality, and Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio is one of those. And but here, a caveat, right? A caveat. Remember, with the Black Moon Lilith is that we get extreme emotional reactivity, so we can become obsessed or really overemphasize the topic, in this case Scorpio stuff, or we can completely reject and deny that, right? Lilith can have this, and you can do both of those at the same time, both of those in one life, or you can stay in one camp or the other for most of your life. So I do know Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio people who have basically completely rejected sex, not because they are genuinely asexual, because those people do exist, but that's not these people. These people have sexual trauma in their past, and more to the point, I think, actually, is that they have all of this shame, this like shame surrounding sex and experiencing sex in their bodies, right? There's a bunch of shame around it, and it's kind of like society's shame put on them. And these people have, you know, dysfunctional sexual relationships to the point where they can refuse to have sex with even like their spouses, right? Their lifelong spouses whom they love and have a positive, like, otherwise healthy relationship with. They can say things like, I'm taking my body back. I'm not giving you my body anymore. And they can like divide it up like that. So I'm kind of guessing that these people are more in the minority, right? But I do just want to like put that out there that these people do exist. This is one manifestation of Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio where you can completely reject sex, not because of an actual asexual orientation, but because of some kind of guilt or shame or power struggles over your own body. That I think is a thing here. You could feel like your body itself is something that, like, who has access to your body, like it's a power struggle. Like people accessing your body, like it is a power struggle between you and other people about what happens to your own body. And you know, as I'm saying that, I'm actually thinking like this, obviously this doesn't have to be like overly sexual in nature, because I'm thinking back to my own self here, and I'm thinking I got the asteroid Lilith in Scorpio, you know, it's like sort of vibrating here, and for a long time, for 8 years, between the ages of 8 and 16, I did not have physical contact with another human being. Literally, I would not hug my parents. I would not let anybody touch me. If you had to pass me a pencil, I would like catch it. I like wouldn't touch your fingers. If you had to pass me something, I like hated to bump into people. Like it would skeeve me out. And it was like I was trying to I'm realizing literally just right now as I'm talking about the Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio that part of that was like a power struggle over my own body. And for me, actually, like I have no history of sexual abuse or anything, so that it was not that for me, but I did feel that, right? And I do see now that is coming from my own asteroid Lilith placement, which is pretty interesting to figure that out. Yeah, so power struggles over your own, and it doesn't, I think it could go deeper here, not just about, so it's not only about sex and it's not only about the body. You could also run into like power struggles over your own identity, your own, like, I almost want to call it like an intimate expression, your own intimate expression. I don't even really know what that means, but that's like the feeling here, right? The feeling here, a power struggle over your own intimate expression, because when Scorpio energy is challenged, there can also be this like weirdness with just intimacy in general. It doesn't have to be sexual or even physical or even romantic intimacy, just like regular friendship intimacy or family intimacy, being able to communicate your emotions, being able to even feeling sometimes like you have to keep all of your emotions inside, because if you were to try to communicate your emotions to someone, they would just like come out like this torrential flood and you might just overwhelm the whole world. It's like this flood of emotions trying to come out. So Lilith and Scorpio also having this thing of how to navigate your own emotional waters, how to navigate your own emotional space, and how to share that with others. Often feeling like it is actually impossible to share that with others. So this is when, you know, if you have some kind of communicative energy, like air energy coming through to kind of help you with that. Like I deal with this because of, I'm assisted with my own emotional expression because of my Gemini moon, right? Even though I have all the Scorpio, my Gemini moon helps me out to communicate that. And that has been a whole lifelong learning process that didn't come to me easily. But if you happen to like not have anything in your birth chart that really emphasizes communication, right? You could really get locked down in this like dark inner scorpionic kind of space, and it can be really a struggle to effectively communicate your feelings. And that again does include like sexual communication, right? Like how you act intimately with your partner, how you touch them, how you allow yourself to be touched, even feeling like sometimes there could be a thing here with your sex drive, right? Where you want to have sex, you want to be in the mood, you have a partner that you love and you feel safe with. And I mean, even this, like love isn't even necessarily required here, but definitely a feeling of connection and safety, right? Wanting to feel like this is a person I can trust, this is a person who is safe for me to be intimate with, right? But like not quite being able to get yourself in the mood, right? And that disconnect where sometimes your body is in the mood, but your mind is not. And it's like you can't quite figure out like, why don't I want what I want? Like, why can't I enjoy this more, right? And it's almost like you can have a power struggle with your own self over whether you want to have sex or not. Does that make sense? I feel like if you've ever experienced that, then you know what that is. Yeah, weird disconnect. I do think, I mean, of course, anyone can experience that, right? Like anybody can experience that, but I do suspect that people in female bodies will have more, like there's probably more people, like more women who experience that, right? This disconnect between what your body wants and like your mental space not quite aligning with that, right? This kind of weird struggle over allowing yourself to want what you want. Okay. What else is going on here with the Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio? My guys are saying like identity, 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 core, identity, core, identity, core. So this is taking this in a little bit of a different direction. It's because of the scorpionic blind spot. And with Lilith looking, because, you know, blind spots, right? We all have blind spots all over the place. We all have all kinds of blind spots. But you can, think about a blind spot is you can like move and look into your own blind spot if you can adjust your perspective, right? Because a blind spot is caused by your perspective. It is caused by your angle. So all you have to do to look into your own blind spot is to like move and look. Right, but the thing, this is really interesting. Scorpio doesn't like to shift its perspective like that. You know, because this is the strange thing about Scorpio, is that it is fixed water energy, right? Fixed water. So it's fixed, it likes to stay the same, it doesn't want to change. And yet, when we say those things, it's not really what we think about when we think of Scorpio, because Scorpio is water energy, so that is flowing and moving and dynamic. And Scorpio is the sign of like transformation, right? The phoenix rising from the ashes, the death card in the tarot. So Scorpio being this very strange iteration of fixed water, right? Obviously, I mean, it's the only fixed water sign in the zodiac because there's no duplicates of that kind of stuff. So how this is showing up, like how I'm seeing this right now, right, is this thing about how Scorpio is fixed in perspective. Fixed in perspective, it doesn't want to shift out of its own way to look into its own blind spot. And there's something here about your identity is in your own blind spot. And I don't necessarily think that this is a thing for all of Scorpio energy. I actually am seeing this as really to do with the Black Moon Lilith wound. Something to do with your identity being in your own blind spot. Your identity is in your own blind spot. Like your own identity is in your own shadow. It's like it's right here behind you. It's right here behind you. And if you could just turn around and look, then you could see yourself, or you could see into your own shadow, you could see into your own blind spot. Well, with Black Moon Lilith, she's really pissed off and really angry. Because how did your identity get put into your own blind spot? How did your identity get put into your shadow? There's something here about Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. And I don't think this is necessarily like your entire identity, right? Because obviously your identity is complex and multifaceted and you are many things and blah, 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 blah. But the piece of your identity that belongs to your Black Moon Lilith, like your Lilith identity, it's right behind you in your shadow. And how did it get put there? How did it get put there? And they're like, it's trauma, it's trauma, it's trauma. It's trauma that has been experienced down here in the physical earth plane. It's some kind of Taurus trauma, right? It's like Taurus caused the trauma. Taurus caused the Scorpio trauma. Taurus being walking around in a sunny meadow, right? Walking the earth, being in the sunshine, everything being earthen and whole and well and grounded. Something there went wrong. It's like you encountered a wrongness. You encountered a wrongness or something wrong, like a wrongness. That's how I want to say this. A wrongness was done to you at some point. And that made you retreat into your own shadow. So there is a part of yourself that actually retreated into shadow because the shadow was cast upon you. A little bit nebulous, but I feel like you Scorpio people will be able to like feel what that means, right? You'll be able to feel what that means. And of course, you know, what is this for you? Yes, it could definitely be something from your childhood. Really more likely here, even if you did have something from your childhood, that is a repetition from a past life, right? A repetition from a past life. And I actually feel like these scorpionic wounds, for a lot of people, not for everyone, but for a lot of people, a lot of these scorpionic wounds, because they are caused like by walking the earth, they're caused by that kind of Tauran trauma, the Taurus trauma. I feel like for a lot of people, they happened when you initially incarnated on earth. It's like you got to earth, something went wrong. You got to earth and there was a wrongness. You got to earth and there was a wrongness. For some people, like, you know, for some people, this could even have something to do with like what happened when you were being born. Like as you were coming out of the birth canal. Like the example they're giving me actually is, you know, cerebral palsy. I don't know all of the ways it can be caused, but I know that one of the ways it can be caused is if when a baby is being born, if the baby chokes on the umbilical cord and, you know, dies, experiences brain death and then is, you know, revived. But if the, you know, if the brain death had happened for long enough, there can be damage to the brain and that can cause cerebral palsy. That is a very specific example, but that's coming up anyway as an example of one of these type of things, right? You're coming into the world, something wrong happened, and you like retreated, almost like you died, right? You died as you were coming into the world, and now you're here, but there is still this scorpionic wound that makes it so there's a piece of your identity that is hard to access, hard to understand, hard to feel. And because of that, I think you can end up with these struggles with intimacy, with emotional expression and communication, and with sex, sexual identity, and all of that type of stuff. So learning to see into your own shadow is going to be a huge part of your healing journey here with your Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. And how do you see into your own shadow? It's interesting, right? Because I've been saying you just have to change your perspective and look behind you, but if you move your head, now your shadow has shifted, right? You can never quite see out the back of your head, except that's not exactly true. That's not exactly true. That is true on the physical, normal, mundane, muggle type of level, right? You don't have eyes in the back of your head, but maybe some of you have experienced, right? Because this is Scorpio we're talking about now. This is Scorpio. So anybody with any Scorpio placements, really, this is where you, like, this is one of the most significant homes of your psychic perception. Of course, you know, there's other zodiac energies that have to do with your intuitive abilities, your soul gifts, your psychic ability, and all that kind of stuff. But Scorpio and the 8th house, right, and Pluto and Lilith and all of this kind of stuff, this is really, in my experience, where things that we would call psychic and occult and spooky and weird and that kind of like the stuff that goes bump in the night and just weird ESP, like mystical experiences that are creepy and bizarre and sometimes scary, right? All of that weird shit, that's all under the Scorpio umbrella. So some of you may have had experiences. Have you ever been like lying in bed at night and your eyes are closed, but you swear you can see the room, right? And you know you're not just, you're not just imagining it, right? You're seeing the room, but through your eyelids. But it's not exactly that you're seeing them through the eyelids, because it's dark in your room, and it's like you're seeing the shapes in your room, and they're made up of particles. It's almost like you're just seeing little specks of light that are creating the room around you, and you can see your desk, you can see your chair, you can see your closet door, right? Whatever you got in your room, you can see the shape of everything outlined by these little particles of light, right? And maybe sometimes you've been able to like accidentally remote view. Lying in bed at night, do you ever see things that are happening out in the sky, right? So in this strange scorpionic type of psychic perception kind of way, you can see out the back of your head. You can, right? And yes, there are some people who will be able to train this and literally be able to see out the back of their head. That's something that, you know, some people, if that's relevant to your soul's journey, you'll be able to do that. Other people, it will happen just really periodically. Maybe you'll just get a sense of what's out the back of your head, right? But anyway, so it's not about literally visibly seeing with your eyeballs, right? It's not about using them to see out the back of your head. It's just being able to perceive, right? So change the word see, change it to perceive. Learn to perceive out the back of your head. That is how you can see into your own shadow. Just perceive, just sense what is there. Sense what is there, and sense what is there using whatever intuitive feelers you use, right? For some people, this is where you have to think of all the different ways that our intuition shows up for each of us. Some people are incredibly visual, right? Some people do the remote viewing. Some people see the angels and the ghosts and the animal guides, right? Some people see things all the time. Some people are really clairaudient and they're hearing, they're communicating, they're talking, and they can hear everything, right? Other people, it's like clairgnosis, right? It's your inner knowing. And this one, I think people vastly underestimate, because of course, if you're seeing things and hearing things, that's really obvious, right? But what if you just know, right? If you just know, it's hard. You have to like validate yourself more on that one, right? But that doesn't mean that your inner knowing is any less awesome than inner seeing or inner hearing, right? Your inner knowing. For a lot of you, it's going to be the inner knowing, or just the inner, and then there's like inner feeling and inner feeling, right? That's where English kind of, isn't so great here. So inner feeling as an emotional feeling, right? Inner feeling just feeling with your emotions, right? That emotional, empathic intuition, feel what's back there, right? Feel for your own identity behind your head in your own shadow. And then there's feeling as in sensing, right? Like tactile, kinesthetic sensing. Actually, I a lot of my just intuitive understanding and just the way I think, the way I process things internally is actually very tactile. It's very sensory. It's like I can feel, like I can, again, this isn't like emotional feeling. This is like sensing. I can sense the shape of things inside my head. I can sense the shape of things inside my head in a way that is like non-visual. Imagine, I mean, you can, all can do this, right? Close your eyes and like feel something with your hands, right? Run your hands all over it. You can create the shape of it in your head. If you're very, very visual, you're going to be visualizing it. A lot of us aren't very visual. I am very non-visual. I actually can't even see very well. Like I can't drive because my vision is too bad. So I'm not very visual at all. And it is entirely possible for me to imagine things and have a whole inner experience, you know, of the mind without having any visual perception. I can create visual images. I can imagine things visually in my mind, but it's kind of hard. It's always really low res and blurry. It's like I'm not good at it and it's not that great, right? But anyway, so I can sense the shape of things inside my own mind. And so you can also reach out behind your head and sense the shape of what is back there. So slightly off topic, right? But I think all of this is relevant for you guys because I guess one thing I haven't emphasized, but it is obviously coming through here, is another aspect of this Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio is your psychic and spiritual experience, right? Your psychic and spiritual ability. So Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio, right? In what way is spirituality, religion, mysticism, psychic experiences, the occult, in what way is that, what kind of baggage do you have around that, right? What kind of baggage do you have around that? High probability for you guys to have, to on the one hand, to be incredibly spiritually gifted, to have psychic ability, right? To be sensitive I mean, everybody is sensitive to some degree, right? But like you guys are, it's emphasized for you, right? Because it's Scorpio. But highly likely for this to be like, for there to be baggage and involved with this, like, something I often see people with this kind of stuff in their birth charts when I'm doing private readings is a past life where someone was like used and abused for their psychic abilities by some kind of cult, something like that. Or, you know, being negatively targeted by some nasty being, right? It's this feeling of being used and abused. And I actually do know people with Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio who were abused by their priest, right? That kind of thing. So it kind of, all of this gets muddled up together. This is actually where like mysticism and sex really rolls up together. And of course, when mysticism and like spirituality and the sexual experience is coming together in a benevolent way and with you and a partner that you love and is safe, then this is like the reason to be alive. That is like one of the best experiences you can have in life, right? But of course, if that's coming up as like a traumatizing thing, then that is probably one of the worst experiences you can have in life. So that's the thing with the Black Moon Lilith and Scorpios. It's really, you got both ends of the spectrum here because you have Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. These are both energies of extreme emotional reactivity. They're both extremely transformative energies, and you guys are just going to be working into getting into the higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher frequencies of Lilith and Scorpio, to the point where, I mean, you could be some kind of incredibly fantastical, mystical priest or priestess, like being able to work very powerful sex magic or intention magic, being able to transform the darkness and expose it to the light. But at the same time, understanding that not all darkness, not all things in the dark need to be exposed to the light, because the light is not better and the shadow is not worse. Right? So a lot of spiritual talk is about how the light is all that is good and the shadow is all that is evil. But that is, of course, extremely polarized thinking. That is extremely like duality-based thought. So you guys are going to be working on transcending that kind of black and white thinking, transcending polarity, transcending the duality thinking, right? And realizing that some things that are of the light are not preferable. Some things that are of the shadow are definitely preferable, and that it doesn't make sense to categorize love and light as good and the dark and the shadow as evil, because these concepts are actually entirely separate, right? Yes, some things are not preferable. Some things are more preferable, but it actually has nothing to do with whether they are light or shadow. It's completely irrelevant. It's a different way of categorizing things. So this is shifting our way of thinking from, instead of thinking good and evil, light and dark, good and bad, blah, 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 we want to think preferable and not preferable, or even more to the point, what I prefer and what I don't prefer. Because of course, what I prefer and don't prefer is going to be different from what somebody else prefers and what they don't prefer. So I'm going to call that there, guys. Very interesting stuff. So I got lots of links down below. I do private readings if you would like me to read your energy. I do lots of different types of readings. You can check out my website or my Etsy shop if you prefer Etsy. I do a Lilith reading. I also just made available a reading where I'm tuning into the Golden Order guides that might interest somebody watching this. I have another YouTube channel for Starseeds and Lightworkers. I have a newsletter. I got all kinds of stuff. The links are all down there. And if anybody would like to buy me a coffee, if you have been enjoying these videos, there is also a link to the Buy Me a Coffee website where you can leave me a little tip. So thank you so much to everyone who has supported me. And also thank you to everyone who has been waiting patiently for my videos. I know that I post slowly, but that's just because I'm not here to be a YouTuber. I'm only here because it feels good to share my thoughts and to post them. And I am here to be doing this over the long term for many, 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 many years. And I see this actually as legacy work, not as a short-term YouTuber thing. So thank you everyone for your continued patience and all of your love and support. Sending you guys so much love and light. I'll talk to you later. Bye.